Hello, my name is Adrian Brown, and I am here to basically explain the model of communication. First, I'll start by saying what communication is. Communication is the production and reception of spoken or written, signed, or gestured information among human beings, or I say animals as well. So, any living beings, really. It can require symbols known as language received through different channels. Now, that is going to be the dictionary definition of communication, but we have my definition, which I think is more simple, but I think it's simply information or news passed along through different living beings. And we have different ways of communications. We can be communicating just by looking at each other. So, for my model of communication, just to explain what the model of communication is, it's a set of components that are required for communication to be established. So, for me, this is my model of communication. Can you see that? Okay. And for me, I started with the source of information. With the source of information, this is where the transmitter receives the information from. So, for me, for example, let's say one night I'm watching the news, boom, that's where I get my information from. So then, once I get that information, I'm going to give it to someone else. I'm going to transmit it to someone else. So that leads me to my second step. My second step is going to be the transmission of information. With the transmission of information, that's simply where communication happens. That is how the news or information is exchanged from one being to another. It can be, like I said earlier, sign language, email, text message, or verbally. There are different ways to communicate. So then that takes me to my last step. My last step is simply going to be then the information is received by the audience. So with that, it's the audience receiving the information. And once the audience receives the information, it's going to have an effect. And then it's going to all start over, and the process is going to continue going over and over again. So with the last step of information received, it is basically just it's the end of the cycle, but it's the beginning of another cycle. And so once they receive that, like I said, it'll start over. And that is my model of communications. Thank you, class.